we go. Okay. Hello. Hello there. My name's Tom. And this is a video on how to take care of a student laptop. Now, you might be wondering, how am I going to demonstrate this? Well, easy. I got my own student laptop right here. But, unlike most laptops, if you can see the screen all that well, there's a bunch of dust on it and some particles on it. Even the keyboard, if I could really show you, there's grease all over it. It's disgusting. Now, some of the ways I'm going to mention how to clean my laptop or your laptop, you're going to need to buy some stuff, but that goes for anything really, right? Like, let's say a spray bottle, you're going to need that, but don't worry about it. You'll probably have most of it at home. Now, we're going to start off with the screen though, and with the fingerprints. That's where we're starting. As you can see, I set up so where you can see my screen perfectly. But I've also done another thing. Before my laptop was turning on, it's off now. It's gonna help you a lot more if you turn it off, because you don't want it to interrupt while you're wiping your screen down. Because most screens are touchscreen, and when you're doing this or anything on it, it's gonna pop right back up. Now, what I'm holding in my hand here is mainly used for fingerprints, and that would be a microfiber cloth. It's their best solution for it. You can buy it from Amazon, buy it from your store. They're pretty cheap to get them by themselves. Or maybe you get them with a phone. Hey, you never know if you had one. So, there's a certain way to do it though. You have to go up and down or wipe left and right. You can't do it in circles for the reason of you're going to just move the dust around and you don't want that. You want it off, don't you? So, you want to do this method. I slowly do it. Not a lot of pressure because these screens are going to crack easy, so be careful. And this goes for any method on the screen, just don't apply too much pressure. It might crack it, or you might scratch it. You never know. And there. Now it looks like it didn't do that great of a job, right? Well, that's because it needs to be wiped down, but with what? That's why this sponge comes in hand. You have to... No. But, here, the next way to clean off your laptop, if it didn't clean off for you, that's not a fingerprint, it's probably a smudge or something. A sponge is perfect, but it has to be damp. With distilled or deionized water, it's the best way to go about cleaning your screen off. And as the same with the microfiber cloth by itself, you go up and down with it. Unlike most laptops nowadays, they can't fold like this. Some can't, I know they can. So when you're doing this, wait until it dries, or as I'm about to show, for time's sake, I need to dry off this computer. But make sure it's completely dry so none of the water gets down the keyboard, because that's the last thing you want happening. And there. And I've got a towel to my right here, and I'm going to wipe down the screen. Now it looks like that left a little mess there too from the towel. It's not the cleanest thing, but it got the job done. So that's where my last way comes in. You will need spray cleaning cleaner. It sounds a little odd, but it really is for this. You can buy it at your local store, screen spray. It's not that hard to find. Or if you're the type that wants to just make their own, you can use distilled water from earlier and white vinegar. So, as you can see, it goes along with the microfiber cloth. And this time, you can make circles. Oops, looks like I forgot to do that. And then, like I said, make circles for any stain on here that won't go away. Like if it sticks to the screen, you can use this to get rid of it. Just like so. And of course there's going to be that vinegary smell if you do go with the homemade stuff, which I did. But that's how you would do it. Now I'm going to show you section, we're not going to need this anymore. It's only for the screen. However, the microfiber cloth might come in handy later, so we're going to put it there for the side. But the sponge, you're still going to need the sponge. If you only damp one of the sides, you can use the other, like I have. But we're going to use the sponge, not with what I just put up. This is rubbing alcohol. You can buy it almost anywhere. And these are cotton swabs. Now, to do this, you need to be careful. You need to make them damp, not soaked or anything. And since we're doing this with a keyboard like this, you have to be careful not to make sure none of it seeps. So, if you give me a moment, I need to get this one ready. And right there, I completely soaked this, so I'm going to use another cotton swab, and I say get multiple for this. You're going to need multiple to do it. And I'm going to transfer some of that rubbing alcohol onto this one so he's damp. Now, how you want to do this is take it up and down, try to get in the cracks, but not too much, because if it starts seeping in, that's not good. You should stop it right away. So be very careful with this part. It's a part that can screw up your computer if you don't know what you're doing. So be very careful with this part and take it slow. And do not press down, because if you're pressing down, ooh, it's going in. There we go. I'm only going to use one cotton swab for this, and our sponge friend is going to go over there. That's all. There's another way to do this. There's even more ways. For any grime that's on it, like grease or grime on those keys, we're going to have to use this sponge, brother's friend. Now, you want to use deionized water or ionized water like before, but since I don't have that, we're going to just settle with regular old water. But since I'm doing this, I have to be very careful in how I do this. And I'll always make it damp, not soaked. As you can see, that's as much as I want. I don't want it to be completely soaked through. That's enough. And, as before, you need to take it carefully over the keys. Make sure not to press down too hard, as with the rubbing alcohol, it can go in the keys and then screw up everything inside, so be careful. Slowly take it, slowly, very carefully. Very slowly, very carefully. And that's gonna about do it. If you still have dust in there by chance, I would recommend a mini vacuum cleaner, if you ever seen them. If not, there's going to be a link in the description to one on Amazon, pretty cheap. But, if you need to take the double-edged sword method, an electric air duster will work. Now why do I say it's a double-edged sword? Well, it's the problem with them, if you're blowing, it might go inside these little cracks here into the parts in there, like into the motherboard, the battery itself actually, sometimes. Anything else in there, CPU, hard drive, it's going to screw it up if you're not careful. So, if you want to take this, you want to be very gentle with it. But it looks like I'm pretty good on dust because I've cleaned it off almost with all that, but if you want to have just dust off, this would be your double-edged sword option. You can see I'm being very gentle. I don't want to screw up anything inside. I'm only letting a little air out at a time. And that would be it for the dust part. Now, to include this with the dust part, spills. That I can't really say because, I'm going to be honest, I can't really mess around with this too much at home. It's owned by the school I go to. I don't want to do that, and they probably wouldn't like me showing that off. So that's all I could say on spills. Otherwise, try to avoid them. It shouldn't be that hard to avoid them by keeping, any liquid out of the way. Like, for example, this is bad. I should really put the cap on this to make sure it doesn't spill onto it. But after all this, it's time to work on the final bit, as I said in the beginning, where the battery is and how to keep it. We're going to take a few minutes, even though I'm showing you the back of it. I'm actually going to turn this on real quick and get an option to show up for you. But this is for Windows user only. If you know what I'm talking about the battery saver option. It's your best. I would say if you have a computer and you want to keep the battery going for a while, that's your best bet at keeping it for a good time. It's going to turn off any background apps, and by that I mean, let's say you have weather going, turns it off so it doesn't take as much power. The brightness of your screen, it's going to dim that so it takes less power. And at 20%, it already auto-activates to make sure your battery can last a little longer. And that brings me to another point as I'm trying to get this up. That's the range you want to charge your battery at nowadays. Before we had all these lithium-ion batteries, people believed it would just be let it die and then recharge it from the beginning. That's not what you want. That's bad sometimes, but I'll explain later. For now, with the 20%, that's a good zone to charge it from, because you want to charge it all the way back up from 20. You never want to try and go below it with lithium-ion batteries. Now, as you can see, I have my computer up. If I go right down here, and you see that? You can't see it, but if you know where the battery for Windows 10 is, it says battery saver right there. And like that, that's how it turns off any background apps for you. Now, I'm going to make this guy go to sleep, and we're going to turn it back over. Now that we're back on the back, let me explain a bit about how batteries are. Batteries are going to generate heat, so you want to leave any ventilation that lets the heat out open, because leaving that open or closed, however you do it, it's just going to mess it up. Your battery needs to let that heat out. And also, don't be using it when it's blazing hot outside or using in a car that's getting directly hit by sunlight. That's not going to help it. The battery is a very sensitive thing, and you should not leave it out in any hot weather. And let's be honest, if you have this on your lap, it's going to leave some damage down in the private area. That's just the truth. It does do that. Just for you to know. But if you know how to keep a cool battery, then you're all good. Another thing to go along with the battery saver I showed you at the very beginning of this section is keep your apps updated. Just keep them updated. It may not sound like it's going to help, but it is. Because with companies, with all their updates, the companies are trying to make sure the batteries use less and less power. Because it helps them with their software, and it helps us as the consumers with that. Now, as I was saying before, there's my charger for it. You might be wondering why I brought that up. It's because of the 20% I mentioned earlier. Batteries today, unlike batteries of before, are lithium-ion. They can handle a certain amount of cycles. What a cycle is for a battery is it goes from 100% down to 0%. That would be a cycle. And let's say you go from 50% to 100%. That's a full cycle. To get the most out of it, you would take that 20% I mentioned earlier and charge it from there, and try not to go below. I'm restating this because most people don't know how to do this. It's important to know that with laptops of today. They're not like of the old, where you had to let it drain all the way down and then drain it all the way back up. No, that doesn't help. Today they can handle certain cycles. And another thing to add, should you leave it charged in all the time? Today, you can, but I wouldn't recommend it still. Today's batteries and software can handle it. They know when to cut off the power supply from the charger, but I would not do it. It's just not smart for the battery. But other than that, I have really no other things to tell you about the battery here. And that would wrap us up. All the way back. That's basically the outside. Now, as you can see, That's all I can tell you, because I don't want to mess with the student laptop so much. I don't own it, the schools own it, and like I said, I don't think they're going to appreciate it if I take it apart here. Even though I am part of the class that is in tech, I'm not going to do it. But however, I am leaving a bunch of links in the description for stuff to buy, for the articles I base this all on, to help you get more in depth with your laptop. But that's all I can offer on student laptops, and that would be it for me. Until the next time I do this, I will see you.